make the corner posts out of maple. To do that, I'm going to rip it at a 45-degree angle. With the corner post pieces cut at 45-degree angles, I can glue them up. I'm just going to clamp these up using rubber bands. That should be strong enough to hold this until it dries. With that drying, I went ahead and cut out the pieces for the lower frame, and they're the same dimensions as the top frame, and I went ahead and dry fit them together just to see how it's going to go. I need to cut a piece of plywood to set down in here. Now that I've got the 4 pieces cut for the lower frame, I want to make a dado cut along the inside edge that will hold the plywood. Instead of setting up the dado set, I just used a regular table saw blade and made 2 passes to it, and I'll clean up the center pass with a 3rd cut after they're all done. Now that I've got the plywood piece cut for the bottom and the grooves cut in the frame, the grooves will hold the plywood, and I'll glue up the frame, and I don't need to put any glue along this edge. I'll just let it float free. I want the 2 sides to be a 1/2 inch thick. I'll resaw those again on the bandsaw. If you're wondering why I have playing cards in here, I use those as shims just to make sure that I can get a 90-degree cut. Now I've got a 1/2 inch board and a 1/4 inch board, and I'll save that for a later project. At $10 a foot, I try to save every bit of wood that I use. Planer shavings, I sweep them up and put them on the vegetable garden as mulch. With my sides cut at a 1/2 inch thick, I need to make some tenons on the ends, which will fit into the corner blocks. I've set up a stop block, which is a 1/4 inch deep, and the blade is a 1/4 inch high. And I'll just nibble at it until it gets down to where I need it. So I cut all of the corner pieces out to 2 1/4 inches high, which are the same dimension as the side pieces. Now that I've got the tenon cut, that will fit right into that mortise and make a tight fit. I cut the side pieces at a 1/2 inch thick so that when they attach to the corner blocks, we'll have a little bit of an overhang, and that's just for decorative purposes. And I've got the corner posts glued up to the sides. Okay, it's time to route out a profile along the top edge and the bottom edge of the chess set. And if you're like me, you've got a lot of router bits, but I think if you stick to the simplest ones, you end up with the most elegant solution. And in this case, I'm using a 1/4 inch roundover bit, and I'll run it one direction, and then I will flip the board over and run it the other, and I'll end up with a bead. I should have made this lower frame wider so that the drawers would have room to slide on. So instead I went ahead and glued down the bottom panel rather than let it float free, and I added some maple runners and I think that's going to work out fine. In fact, maple is probably a better choice for a runner anyway, since it's a harder wood than walnut. Now I've got the side pieces glued on to the bottom, and you can see what it's going to look like with the top on. But I don't want to glue the top on yet because I want to get started on the drawers, and I want to be able to get to them inside to make sure they fit right. I glued in a couple of 3/4 inch plywood strips inside the case just to support the top a little bit more and to prevent any kind of sagging that might occur.